Hi, Julie, it's Claire.
Hi, Claire.
Hello. Thank you that you're going to come and talk about your experience from where you were diagnosed with a brain tumour and also the work that you do now with Brain Tumour Support. So just so people know a bit more about your history, when were you diagnosed?
It was in 2011, so it was just over 4 years ago. I'd had headaches for about 18 months or so, and I was studying for a degree and thought it was down to all the stress of that and running a nursery and those kind of things. So I kind of put it down to that and saw the doctor a few times, but progressively my headaches and that got worse. So in the early part of 2011, I was making more trips to the doctors. And I even saw a private neuroconsultant as well, and he diagnosed me with daily chronic headaches, so it was nothing more sinister than that. And then one night I almost collapsed, and then basically my husband, he kind of decided, right, you need a scan. We need to contact the doctor and ask for a scan. So I had a CT scan, and that's when they found my tumour. It was 5 centimetres.
So how long do they roughly think that you may have had it for, or they're not really sure?
They never really said, actually, but, I think in hindsight, because of its location, it was a posterior fossa, a meningioma. I think because it affects your coordination and balance and that kind of thing, I would say I possibly had it when I was a child, but just didn't know about it, really.
Yeah. How long was it before you had surgery?
Well, because of the size, and it was kind of pressing on different things in the brain, the brain stem and the pons and those kind of things, they decided that I needed surgery within 2 weeks, actually. So it was almost like an emergency. But they couldn't take it all away because it had attached itself to the transverse sinus, which I believe is one of the major blood vessels in the brain.
How did you cope with family?
My daughters were a lot older, or are a lot older, so they were kind of in their late teens. I think, it did affect them quite a bit. And at the time, I was just really focused on my son to be better and get this tumour out, really. But I do know and understand how awful it was for them and the worry and uncertainty for them. And I almost think that they had a worse time of it than I did at that time. When I went in for surgery, I've got this lasting look of my husband watching me walk down the corridor to go and have my operation. And so, I kind of think of that quite often, actually, when I recall my journey.
How often do you have to go back for a scan?
It's annually, so it's every year, usually in March. So, I usually get a little bit anxious leading up to the scan, and waiting on results tends to take a couple of months, really.
Completely confuses me why it takes quite so long, because sometimes it's normally because there's nothing wrong and they're not in a hurry. But other times, I do know people that there have been problems. It's nothing that was life-threatening, but it was something that people would have liked to have known before. So it is very frustrating how long it takes them to come back to you. That's something I think I've always had a bit of a problem with, that, the amount of time you have to wait. Yeah,
and I know, there's some people that I know that still, even when they're having more regular scans, they still have to wait that time frame.
Yeah.
So that must be just awful for them. I'm kind of reassured that because mine was a low-grade tumour and slow-growing, that should anything happen, it would be quite slow anyway.
So with recovery-wise, what were any kind of effects that you had after your surgery?
Well, I think I kind of expected that I would return to normal and it would be quite quickly. And I put myself under quite a lot of pressure to return to work, which I realise now was probably the wrong thing to do. I suppose fatigue was one of the hardest things, and, becoming tired more quickly.
Did you try and go straight back to work, or did you take time off?
Fortunately, because I was working in education, my surgery happened just before the summer holidays. So,
okay, big break, yeah.
Yeah, so there was a break from work anyway, but I did go back the following September, so within, 6 weeks. But it was only for, 3 hours a week, so it was mostly phased and it was done properly.
Yeah. And then did you feel that you were able to do the job you were doing? Did you struggle or anything after the surgery?
Yes, I did, yeah. I think because I was working with children, I just found it really difficult, particularly if if we were outside with the children, because they have access to outdoors, and it was cold, and because of the surgery I had, the surgeon didn't replace the skull where obviously where they took the tumour out. So I do have this section in my skull where I don't have any skull. Wow. If that makes sense. And so I do find that's one of the things I do get, and I still get it now, is a lot of pain, particularly when it's cold or windy. But whether it's neurological, I'm not too sure.
I think that's what happens with a lot of people, is that there's so many problems for people, but we're never always sure, is it mental because there's so much happened to us, or sometimes because the doctors don't always, not the doctors, but the surgeons sometimes do make you feel like, oh, but this isn't normal, or it's normal, but it's not to do with your brain tumour, and you're like, really? Are you sure it's not to do with that? Because I was fine before. So that you're never sure whether...
No, that's right. And I think kind of a question I've asked is it normal not to have your bone, the skull replaced? And for this particular type of surgery, then it is normal for it not to be replaced. But I've not actually come across anyone without their skull. So, I mean, it's only a small section, so it's not a mass, and it's at the back, so nobody can see. So it's not really to do with, how it looks, because it's covered in all my hair. But it's more about the pains that I get when it's cold.
Yeah, a lady that we interviewed last week, actually, she also, they've done the same thing. They didn't cover it. So she's had quite a few problems with it, especially with infection and stuff. And it just feels a bit weird. You're like, don't you want to put that bit back?
Yeah, so I suppose I felt almost, while I was at work, felt like a bit of a risk. Because if I was to fall or trip, then... I felt like my skull was at risk because it had got this gap in it, So, I did return to work, but after about 18 months, I kind of decided I was back to almost full-time work and working in a preschool and running a nursery, and I just realised that actually it wasn't what I wanted to do anymore. I love children, I love the job that I did, and I gained a degree in it, and as an early years professional. But because of my operation, and maybe it changed the way I was feeling about the work-life balance.
Yeah, you do. It is a bit of a wake-up, isn't it? That's not as important as life in general, of having a life of some sort.
Yeah.
From where you were managing a preschool, what did you then want to do to fill that gap, really?
Well, I suppose, this kind of takes me to Brain Tumour Support, and at the time they weren't called that, they were called Hammer Out Brain Tumours, and they ran a support group in Cornwall, and I stumbled across it, as you do, on Google search or what have you, this support group, and I started attending that and found that it was a really friendly and relaxed group, and it was a place where I felt really quite safe and able to talk about my worries, and we shared experiences and those kind of things. I met some great friends from there, and I kind of decided that actually I might like to volunteer or do some voluntary work.
Brain Tumour Support, what's the actual, I mean, we've spoken to them before, but what's the area that you now are involved with?
Well, the area I cover is Devon and Cornwall, right. So we're kind of in the southwest. Other areas that are covered are really from Stoke down to Cornwall and across to Dorset and Hampshire and that kind of area. So those are the two areas that I cover. Obviously, I live in Cornwall, so I understand how rural it is and how large both counties are, and how isolating it might feel for somebody that can't drive. And having been kind of in that position myself, I know it was only for 6 months after surgery, but I realise how a person doesn't lose their independence by not being able to drive and get to places.
So what are the kind of things you do at the support group? How many, roughly, how many people are involved?
Well, each of us, my two support groups, they vary quite a bit actually in the amount of people that attend. In Devon, our group in Exeter, we had 12 people on Friday, and each person, they have a different kind of journey, but they're able to share experiences, and there's some similarities amongst them. It's quite a friendly and relaxed group. We can organise guest speakers, or we've organised a walk. We groomed horses. It's just a type of therapy, really. It takes them out of a room, and when you're sat talking, it kind of takes you out from that environment and gives them something else to do, and a little bit of fun maybe that they might not have access to with some like-minded people who are going through similar stages in their diagnosis or treatment. So you kind of almost like as you're grooming a horse, you're chatting about what's been going on for you in the last few weeks. So it's been quite therapeutic, I think.
What kind of people, you say there's a whole range of people that are coming. Are there people that are kind of at the beginning where they've been diagnosed? Are there people that they're mainly people that have sort of they're after their treatments and surgery, or is it a real range of people?
Yeah, it is actually a range of people. We have some that are newly diagnosed, and often, you can sense the uncertainty, and they're just after some kind of guidance and what's it going to be like for me. And obviously, being in that room with other people that have experienced it, it's just so important for them to kind of share with someone. Bring your loved one, a friend or a carer, or the person who's driven you to the group. Anyone's welcome at all.
And it doesn't cost anything. Anyone?
The support group itself, no, it doesn't cost anything. And usually we have cake and refreshments there, or biscuits. And last week actually we had our own support group bake off, and it was lovely to see that everyone in the group had contributed by making cakes, or we had somebody that judged the cakes, and obviously we all took part and ate the cakes.
Oh, yummy.
It was really lovely to see everyone kind of relaxed and having a little bit of fun, as well as being able to talk about the more serious stuff too.
So with the people that get involved, obviously it's the area that you're in, but if someone needed a bit kind of experience with the medical side of things?
Well, generally speaking, all of the brain tumour support workers would advise them or signpost them to speak to their clinical nurse specialist, or somebody at the hospital. So there's nobody actually within brain tumour support, but obviously we wouldn't be able to answer those type of questions. We could find out the information for them, and particularly from the clinical nurse specialist from their hospital, we could make direct contact if the patient gave us the permission to do that, obviously. We would always direct them to their GP or their clinical nurse specialist, or their hospital, or their oncologist or surgeon, or surgeon secretary.
What are the other things that you do at the support group?
Well, usually we kind of ask our members or our attendees kind of what they'd like to do maybe, and let them make that choice. So it's not necessarily us kind of taking charge, but facilitating whatever they would like. So one of our members in Cornwall, she quite fancied us perhaps going out on a walk, and so it was quite easy to organise, and it's just really having the tools to organise it, or the contacts should we decide to have a meal out or something like that, and making those arrangements and making sure everybody in the group that normally attends the group knows where it is.
How do you raise the funds for it?
Well, we do rely on people fundraising for us, and I know here in Cornwall, prior to taking on this role, my friends and I, we would fundraise for brain tumour support. We did one quite recently, actually, a bingo, so it's vital. The funds that are raised are vital, and I've been in contact with somebody recently who's ran for brain tumour support, and obviously she's gained some sponsorship through that. Somebody's wanting to do a walk. I mean, it's just amazing once there's a connection, and once we've kind of made ourselves known in the community, particularly here in Devon and Cornwall, obviously, to let people know here that we exist, and let them know what we actually do, and then people come forward and they offer to fundraise for you. Our posts work in partnership with Macmillan, so my post is part funded by Macmillan.
I didn't realise that. Oh, that's good.
And it's good for us to, when we need to give our contacts our patients some information, it's good to be able to direct them or give them the resources from Macmillan themselves, because they're obviously credible and up to date and those kind of things. So with regards to benefits and all the financial advice, there's resources, and there's obviously the benefits department within Macmillan I can signpost people to, even within Cornwall. There's somewhere that people can go if they wanted a face-to-face interaction rather than a telephone call, you know. So there's all those kind of things that we're able to do.
Yeah. So even though you're a small group, at the same time, there's loads of ways for you to send people in the right direction. If you don't have it, you've got that massive backing with them. Yeah,
definitely. And, recently I've been in contact with like epilepsy groups and facial palsy groups, local ones to Devon and Cornwall, and because with our patients or the people that we see, they obviously need support, or they can need support in other areas, and so it's just really about making the people that we are in contact with know about other organisations that could offer support too.
Yeah. So if people want to find out a bit more about the support group, just to let people know the website, just so I get this right, but it's www.braintumorsupport.co.uk.
Yep, that's right, yeah.
And then you've also got a Facebook group, which again is just under Brain Tumour Support. I'm not sure if many people will know that before it was Brain Tumour Support, it was originally as being Hammer Out, which then got changed to Brain Tumour Support. It was about a year ago, I think it was, or maybe more.
Yeah, just over a year ago, perhaps 18 months ago, something like that. Yeah. It changed then, yes.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing your experience and telling us a bit more about the charity. And it's wonderful that they do the support groups, because I think that's something that's so important, that people have somewhere to turn to.
Yes, and they're regular, they're kind of, they usually run on the same time every month. So like my Cornwall one is usually it is the second Tuesday of the month, and the Exeter one is the first Friday of the month. So when it comes to that kind of time of the month, then we're here. We're always going to be where we say we're going to be, unless we've organised a trip out, and then we'd let everybody know.
Oh, brilliant. So,
yeah,
exactly. So I will. Yeah, no, that's perfect. Well, thank you so much that you agreed to come and speak to us, and I really appreciate it. And I really wish you all the best with the work you're doing with Brain Tumour Support. And obviously, I look forward to finding you again in a couple of months' time and finding a bit more about what's going on with the charity.
Super.
And you can tell us some more.
Thank you. It's been great talking to you.
And I'll speak to you soon.
Thanks, now. Bye.